Now, I'm going to take a quick jaunt up the stairs so you can see the Austen Moore Elizabeth Barrett Browning Salon. The Austen Moore Elizabeth Barrett Browning Salon on the third floor is the only room in the library which is dedicated primarily to Elizabeth Barrett Browning, and we have Mary Maxwell Armstrong to thank for insisting that there be a special room in the library to honor Elizabeth Barrett Browning and her poetry. Originally, this room housed all of the library's books, manuscripts, and artifacts belonging to or about Elizabeth Barrett Browning. Today, this room is meant to represent a Victorian salon and reflect some of the Brownings' personal tastes. The predominant color of the room is green, as green was supposedly Elizabeth Barrett Browning's favorite color. We know what the Brownings' salon at their home in Florence looked like because of the painting exhibited here, on loan from Mills College. Robert Browning commissioned George McNatty to complete this painting in 1861, shortly after Elizabeth's death. As he was preparing to return to London, Robert Browning wanted to be able to remember where they had spent their life together. The chair you see in the lower left-hand corner is downstairs in the Hankamer Treasure Room. Many of the items in the salon belonged to Elizabeth Barrett Browning during her lifetime. In the painting, you can see Elizabeth's fan on the reclining chair, and the framed fan above the diorama is believed to be the same fan. This writing table was given to Elizabeth Barrett Browning by her grandmother before her marriage. The others in the back were gifts to her sisters. The letter tray on top of the desk also belonged to Elizabeth. These olive wood chairs were used by the Brownings at Casa Guidi in Florence. Around the room, we have several portraits of Elizabeth Barrett Browning. The most recognized likeness of Elizabeth Barrett Browning is probably this 1859 Field Telford portrait on the far wall. Another well-known portrait is the Eliza Fox bridal portrait over the large music case. This one is most like Elizabeth Barrett Browning as she appears in photographs. The prayer stand or kneeling bench at the back wall was also the Brownings. The two small paintings of a bishop and a saint, and this one of Christ and John the Baptist, belong to the Brownings. To the left of the doorway, we have a portrait of Catherine Cornell by Alexander Clayton. Cornell was the actress who played Elizabeth in the Broadway production of The Barretts of Wimpole Street, a play written in the 1930s about the courtship of Robert Browning and Elizabeth Barrett Browning. The portrait shows Cornell in costume as Elizabeth Barrett. Catherine Cornell became a friend of Dr. Armstrong, and she came to Baylor University in 1951 to take part in the library's dedication services. Cornell gave this shadow box opposite her portrait to the library at the dedication ceremony. It depicts a scene where Robert and Elizabeth meet for the first time in the play The Barretts of Wimpole Street. The flowered afghan in the shadow box is very similar to one we have on exhibit on the sofa. Ours is an exact replica of an afghan used by Elizabeth Barrett before her marriage. In our collections, we have a knitting pattern from a popular 1930s women's magazine for readers to use to make their own Barretts of Wimpole Street afghan. The woman whose portrait hangs over the sofa is Mrs. Abner McClendon. She donated a first edition of Pauline, one of Robert Browning's rarest works, to the Armstrong Browning Library. She also donated a number of pieces of antique furniture for the salon. The salon's stained glass windows are 5 of the 8 windows in the library that illustrate Elizabeth's poetry rather than Robert's. They each represent one of the sonnets from the Portuguese, and by the way they are arranged in the room, tell the story of Robert and Elizabeth's courtship. Here we see Sonnet 1, Sonnet 3, and Sonnet 8. Elizabeth wrote this series of sonnets during their courtship period as a personal exploration of her emotions during that time. She did not show them to Robert until several years into their marriage. When he read them, he believed that they were the best sonnets written since Shakespeare's, and felt that they should be published and shared with the public. Because they were so personal, though, the poets decided to call them the Sonnets from the Portuguese, hoping that the public would think they were some obscure Portuguese sonnets that Elizabeth had translated. However, it did not take the public long to realize that the sonnets were Elizabeth's original work and not translations.